So, this unit is about proportional relationships, and the first thing that we're going to cover today is just a little bit about rate, but then mostly just unit rates today. So, talking about this main idea about rates, just the best way to describe it is that a rate is a ratio that compares two quantities. So, what we mean by that is basically we want there to be two different units that we are comparing. And essentially, we're going to set it up as a fraction. And remember, fraction means to divide. So ultimately, at the end of what we're doing, we'll divide. So, an example of a rate, this is just one out of many examples, is that we have 60 miles in 3 hours. Now, I want you to take note here that rates, it says it's a ratio that compares two quantities. So if we look at this example that I have, I put 60 miles. Miles is the first quantity in 3 hours. That's the second quantity. And that's what's so important is that you need to have two quantities. Okay, moving on, which, by the way, if you guys ever need to pause the video, feel free to pause it. That's the beauty of recording. So, anyways, unit rates. A unit rate is a rate with a denominator. That's this blank right here. Of 1. Oops, let's try that again. 1. So, to change a rate to unit rate, honestly, all you have to do is just divide. You're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. So before we do these examples, I want you to look at this section right here where it says write rates using the symbol, and you might see it like a slash, or I like to put it literally as a fraction. And looking at either the slash or the fraction bar, you're going to read it as the word per. All right? So just keep that in mind when we're setting these up. So we have some directions here, and it says to express each rate as a unit rate. And then it says to round to the nearest tenth when necessary. So let's think about that. The nearest tenth. I'm just going to write a random number here, 1.23. Now the tenth is the first place after the decimal. So that's what I'm going to do here when we are rounding, is just looking at the first number after the decimal. So let's take a look at this first example. Number 1, it says 364 miles in 7 hours. Now, when you're setting up unit rate, you want it to be set up in a way that makes sense. So when I set this up, do I want to set it up as miles per hour, or do I want to set it up as like hours per miles? So when we're measuring, we set it up as miles over hours, because ultimately when we're measuring, we look at how many miles you travel in 1 hour. So knowing that, I'm going to match the numbers that go with those units. So I see that I have 364 miles. So I'm going to put equals, and I'm going to draw my fraction bar. So I'm going to put 364. That's the miles. And then what matches with the hours is 7. So I have 364 over 7. Now back in our directions, it says to express each rate as a unit rate. And then looking back at the top there where it says to change a rate to unit rate, we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, so 364 over 7 is the rate. But in order to make it the unit rate, all you would have to do is simply divide. So you would put 364 in the house, and then you would divide by 7. And then you would just start dividing like normal. So it goes in 5 times, subtract 35, for a remainder of 1. Bring down the 4. It goes in 2 times. Okay, So it's 52. So equals, and I'm going to put 52 over 1. So you would read this as 52 miles in 1 hour. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. So we have 50 yards in 6 4/10 seconds. So again, we need to think about a way that would make sense when we set up our rate. So is it yards per second or is it seconds per yard? And the one that would make the most sense would be yards per second. So I'm just abbreviating here. All right, now I'm going to put the numbers down, or I'm going to look at the numbers that match my units. And in this case, I see that I have 50 yards over 6.4 seconds. So that's the rate that's given to us. In order to make it into a unit rate, you would just simply divide. And if you do 50 divided by 6.4, you end up getting 7 point, oops, let's try that again, 8. There we go, over 1. So you would read this as 7.8 yards per 1 second. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do number 3. So it says 210 words in 6 minutes. It should say minutes. That's a typo right there. Okay, so again, when we set up our rate, which is our ratio, we're going to think, does it make sense words per minute or minutes per word? Well, when you're measuring like someone talking or typing, you want to know how many words they can type or speak in 1 minute. So we're going to use our labels. That's what we call them, the units, labels, whatever it may be. We're just going to write words over minutes. All right, so that's the labels. Now we're just going to put the words that are associated, or the numbers I should say, that are associated with our units. So I'm going to put 210 over 6. And then again, all you would do is divide. So you would do 210 divided by 6. And in this case, you get 35. 35 over 1. So it's 35 words in 1 minute. Okay, so let's take a look at the table, which is number 9. And I'm going to read that problem. So it says the table below shows the number of teachers and the number of students at each of the 4 middle schools. Which school has the most students per teacher? So that's kind of important to know. They want to know the students per teacher. So we could just kind of write this in words, what we're looking for here. So the per represents that fraction bar that I was talking about earlier. So you would just write students. Again, you could abbreviate that if you want to, per teacher. So I'm just going to write teach, stu per teach. So when I set up these ratios, I'm going to take a look at the labels or the units and make sure that I just have it set up correctly. So if we look at the schools, Edgewood Middle School, they have 34 teachers and 840 students. So you would just simply write your ratio of 840, which is the number of students, and then the teachers is 34. And if you divide those two, you get about, I'm going to scoot over here a little bit, 24.7 over 1. So that's the number for Edgewood Middle School. Now, Fairpoint Middle School has 40 teachers and then 675 students. So I'm going to write 675 over 40. And if you divide those two, you get about 16.99. Let's try that again. over 1. That's not a very good one. There we go. Okay, and then the next one is Wellington Middle School. So they have 31 teachers and 604 students. So you would just do 604 over 31. And that ends up being 19.5 over 1. And then the last one is Randall Park Middle School, and we're just going to use the space over here for it. They have 28 teachers and 578 students. So again, we're setting this up as students per teacher because that's what the question is saying. So we're going to put 578 over 28. And if you divide those two quantities, you get about 20.6. My tablet's not cooperating, y'all. Let's try that. 20.6 over 1. So looking at these numbers and comparing, it wants to know which school has the most. So most being like the highest number. And if we look, we have 24.7, 16.9, 19.5, and 20.6. So it looks like Edgewood Middle School is going to have the most. So I'm going to check that off. Okay, so flipping your paper over, on the back side at the top, it says unit rates with price. Now this is something that is relevant in your real life because when you go grocery shopping, you always want to look for what's a better buy. Meaning you want to know like what's the cheapest, like the biggest bang for your buck. I'm sure you've done it with your parents and they want to know how much, like which one's going to give you more for like the best price. So anyways, it says unit prices give the cost per 1 unit. This is especially helpful when comparison shopping in order to find the best deal. When finding a unit price, always divide, that's the first blank. You're going to divide the price by the quantity. So anytime you ever see like a price and you're wanting to know like the unit rate of that, always do price over whatever it may be. That's going to be the easiest thing to do. So the directions say to express each rate as a unit rate. So we're going to have to write the rate first and then divide and we'll get our unit rate. And then it says to round to the nearest cent when necessary. So cent is, 2 places after the decimal. Okay. Oh, and I just realized on the other side when I said, oh no, I was right. Never mind. Ignore me. Okay. So that's the 100th on this side. Okay. Let's look at number 11. So it says $9.40 for 5 cans of soup. So just like on the other side, we're going to write the rate first, and then we'll figure out the unit rate by dividing. So the rate in this case is, I'm just going to write a $sign because it's going to be the price divided by the quantity. So in this case, the quantity, whatever, the other thing that's being measured is cans. So I'm going to write cans. Okay, equals. Now I'm going to put that price as our numerator. So I'm going to put 9.40 over 5. So in order to figure out that unit rate, I would just simply have to divide. So I'm going to put, and I'm going to take away that decimal for, or not the decimal, I'm going to take away that 0 for now. So I'm going to put 9.4 in the house divided by 5. So I'm going to take that decimal, put it up in my quotient. It goes in 1 time. Subtract 5 for a remainder of 4. Bring down that 4. And it goes in 8 times. Subtract 40 for a remainder of 4. I'm going to add a 0. Bring it down. And it goes in exactly 8 times. All right, so I'm going to erase that just because I need space to write. But y'all know how to divide, so today's going to be an easy day. Anyways, so it is 1 point, oh, let's try that again. 1.88 over 1. So what that means is it's $1.88 for 1 can of soup. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Let's do we'll do number 13, directly underneath. So it says 15 gallons of gas for $31.35. All right, so again, we're going to put the price on the top. So we're going to write in words. So we have price over gallons. Those are the two things, the two quantities that we are or different units, quantities, units, whatever you want to call it. So those are the words, and then we're going to look at the numbers that are associated. So we're going to put 31.35 on the top. Over, and then we have 15 gallons. Now remember, when you set up your ratios, you want to think to yourself, what would make the most sense? Would you want to know price per gallon or gallon per price? And it's always okay to ask yourself those questions in your head. So again, all we would do is divide. So I'm going to put 31.35 in the house, and I'm going to divide by 15. I don't have to move any decimals, so I'm just going to bring this decimal up into the quotient. And if I look, 3 is definitely small. It goes in 2 times. I'm going to subtract 30 for a remainder of 1. Bring down that 3. So it goes in 0 times because 15 is bigger than 13. So I'm going to bring down that 5. So I have 135. So if I skip count 15, it goes in 9 times. 15 times 9 is 135. So that would be my answer. I'm going to erase this because, again, I need space, and there's not a whole lot of space on this paper. So I'm going to put equals, and I just calculated $2.09 over 1. So what that means is it's $2.09 for 1 gallon of gas. All right. So y'all get the idea on this. Just do price and divide by quantity. Now, this is, we're going to look at some better buys here. We are going to do number 22 and number 23. So not 21 and not 24. Okay, so if we look at option A, it says 12 ounces of cereal for $2.99 or 17 ounces of cereal for $3.52. So just like up at the top, it says when finding unit price, you're going to divide the price by the quantity. So you would set up that rate first. So I'm just going to use this space off to the side here because we got some space. So I'm going to write for the first one, I'm going to put price over ounce. The abbreviation for ounces is OZ if you forgot. And then I'm going to put equals 2.99 over 12. So you would divide that, and in this case, you would get, I'm going to use a different color, 0.25 over 1. So that's 25 cents per ounce. And then same idea for the second option. So it's still going to be price over ounce. So I'm going to write that price over ounce. And that is going to be 3.52 over 17. Again, I would divide numerator divided by denominator, and I would get 0.21 over 1. So when we're looking at better deals, we want to know which one's the cheapest per ounce. So in this case, option B would be cheaper per ounce. Okay, again, I'm going to erase because I need space. But maybe you just want to make a little mental note off to the side here. You could put 0.25 over 1. We could also do, for this other option, you could write 0.21 over 1. Next one, number 23. It says option A has a 6-pack of paper towels for $9.79. And then option B has 8-pack of paper towels for $12.49. So again, you would just want to do like the price over packs, because that's what we're wanting to know. So price over packs. And you would do 9.79 over 6. And then you would divide that and get $1.63 for one paper towel, or one like roll of paper towels. So this one is 1.63 over 1. And then for the next one, it's the same idea. Price per, I'm just going to put number because that's how many paper towels are in one pack there. So we would put 12.49 over 8. And then you would divide that and you would get $1.56 over 1. So looking at this, 1.56 for one roll of paper towels, well, which one's going to be the better buy? Which one's going to be cheaper for us at the end? In this case, it's going to also be option B. All right. Good job on your notes. Feel free to fill out the rest of them if you want to, if you need some more practice. Otherwise, great job.